Of this series, and then I'm going to have the summer break.
No! Please teach. It's important for us to have good teachers.
That's why you're here.
Please.
Why summer break?
My summer break? Seems like the nice thing to do.
Wouldn't it be nicer to teach people Dharma?
Well, then what we do at the end of the summer.
Course one.
Somebody else is doing that, so we got it covered.
Bring it back home.
You're going to start ACI what?
Guest speaker, ACI
Really? You're going to do?
You'll be so bored.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds so good.
What will we do? We'll have to figure out what we will do, right?
There's space here if you want to do anything in here.
Yeah, there's a slot saying Tuesday night.
Or Monday, or Thursdays. I'm taking summer off. No.
Are you taking?
No.
No.
It'd be fun to have you during the summer. We have AC.
AC and ACI. I wonder if Bruce is not going to show tonight, so we can't.
He's too busy packing.
Oh, he's gonna show?
Oh, he's forgotten. He's already moving down there. He's
He's
forgotten.
already gone.
Anyway,
He's gonna hate it.
absolutely, huh?
You're gonna hate Florida?
That's why we're going to have a summer break. We'll give Bruce time to come back after the summer in Florida.
That's true, actually. Yeah, it's cooler in New York.
Michelle Ledoux says hi.
Oh, that's nice. Did you go to Haiti?
She's going to Haiti on Friday.
Nice. That's lovely. Relief mission. Want to meditate? Shall we meditate? Talk about the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life a little bit. So please sit. Oh, yes, okay. I'm all kilter here, being late.
Sashi Pukir Jishin Metokram Nira Lingshin Yendegam Padi Sangha Shindu Miteduargi Drakun Namda Shinla Chuparsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamninyatayami Sangha Chidam Soki Chognangha Janchu Bardu Dakni Gyapsuji Dagi Jinyangi Pesonam Ki Drola Vanshir Sangha Druparsho Sangha Chidang Soki Shognamha Janchu Bardu Dakni Gapsuchi Daki Jinyangi Pesonam Ki Drola Vanchir Sangha Druparsho Sangha Chidang Soki Shognamha Janchu Bardu Dakni Gapsuchi Daki Jinyangi Pesonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangha Druparsho.
So please sit comfortably for 3 minutes of meditation. Check that your spine is comfortably straight. Check that you're breathing through your nostrils, and you're going to just take a few moments to shift gears and calm the mind and put it into a different space. Take it out of the preoccupation of the day's activities. So count 14 breaths, beginning with exhalation and an inhalation as one round. Gentle, slow breaths. Now think about a holy being. You can visualize them in your mind's eye, or you can think about them in their qualities. Try to be as clear as you can and seeing them and feeling them. You can think about their pure holy qualities. And you can see the image of their beautiful holy form, radiating virtue, light. Take a moment and be as clear as you can, whatever way is comfortable to you. Invite that holy being to join you and stay very close to you, to bless you and guide you. You can see them on top, the crown of your head, or in your heart, close to you, whatever way is right for you. Feel their joy and their bliss and their goodness and uplifting radiance. Feel their mind and what it's like. Try to let yourself just relax in that holy glow. Try to come back to this place and this awareness as often as you can, as frequently as you can. Awareness of their being with you. You can hold them in your heart as a glowing light, or above the crown of your head, or just physically close to you. Whenever you have any mental affliction or difficulty, recall them and get as clear as you can with the feeling of their holy presence and their joy and bliss and radiance. Try to come back to this as your anchor. As your guide. So, holding this feeling, homage to all holy beings, thank you for coming. So we're on the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And in the opening chapters, we started to talk about the beginning of the guide, and last week we said that the point of any Buddhist book is to they really open by doing a sales job on you and pitching you on the benefits of the book and why you should care and why you should be interested and what it has to offer, right? What you get out of it and why you should pursue it, right? So we did that last week. And the guide starts to go into a lot of different explanations about check and see if the children are in need. Home alone, and they kept texting me on the way over here with different issues.
I'm gonna text Bruce. Ask if he's coming to class.
Yeah. Or they trying to.
I wish they were here.
So they start to go into different further elaborations on the benefits of the wish and how it removes suffering for all beings and different ways in which it removes suffering from all beings. And we don't have time to go into all of it in detail, so tonight's class we're going to mainly focus upon what are called nyomons, or mental afflictions, bad thoughts. Right? The guide is, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a bodhisattva? Right? It means that we are going to change our behavior and assert ourselves to work for the benefit of every living being, including ourselves. Right? And so, nice idea, great concept. What gets in the way of that?
Negative states of mind.
Our mind, negative mind, right? Afflicted mind. All of our normal reflexes and impulses to be jealous and angry and self-absorbed and on and on and on, right? So, it's a lovely idea and it's a lovely thought to say, I'm going to help everybody, and I want to be loving and compassionate towards everyone, and I want to just make the world a better place and treat everyone I meet in a loving, kind, compassionate way. Who's going to argue with that, right? Not many people. Why doesn't everybody do it? Right? Including those of us who aspire to it and take vows for it and say we're going to dedicate our lives to it, right? Why don't we do it? Because our mind impedes us, because our mind, we don't have control of our mind, and because our mind asserts itself in a way that drives us to behave differently, right? And what is it that causes our mind to what is it that causes us to lose control of ourselves? What is it that causes us to lose control of our mind, right? So that we can't do what we want to do, so that we can't live as the person that we want to be, so that we can't accomplish our aspirations and attain our goals, right? What is it that just rips our mind and our life out of our hands, right? It's our mental afflictions, right? Things pop up in our mind that we don't want to have pop up in our mind. Like, who wants to feel lousy? Who wants to be angry, right? Nobody says, gee, I hope I get angry today, right? Gee, I hope I get jealous today. Gee, I hope somebody yells at me and I feel really depressed and miserable today. Nobody out of that. So, it's not like we're trying to have these mental states. It's not like it's something that anyone would do given the choice, right? And the problem is we're not given a choice. The problem is these states are forced upon us, right? What forces them upon us? Well, it's what we said before. Stuff pops into our head. Why does stuff pop into our head? Why do thoughts pop into our head? Why do feelings pop into our head and heart, right? Why does stuff just come up? Why does stuff just happen? Why do I have these thoughts and feelings? Where did they come from, right? Why are they there? Well, from a Buddhist perspective, they're impulses which are arising because we created that programming. We patterned ourselves, we habituated ourselves, we programmed ourselves on a very subtle, deep level, to do that and to be that way. Now we have to reprogram ourselves. We have to re-habituate ourselves, we have to reprogram ourselves, we have to retrain ourselves, right? So that the thoughts and feelings which are popping into our mind and heart are the ones that we want to have, right? So there's a degree of sort of mental and emotional engineering going on, right? I have these feelings, I have these thoughts, I don't want them. Instead, I want these other feelings and these other thoughts. And I can't just consciously, volitionally say, in the moment, I'm going to think a happy thought now and have it happen, right? It's coming from something else. It's coming from somewhere else in the past, right? And we have to set up the causation, right? Now, which is the future's past. That's too tricky, but, you know, this is the past for the future, right? Everything, right?
It's really cool.
In the future, this will be the past, right? And so right now is the time when we are of the past that's making
The future.
future present.
Back to.
Not to be too confusing with that, but you gotta think you get it. Yeah,
It's like net present value.
something like that.
It was clear before.
So I started talking
In the
about
past.
it really. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So we are creating our future, right? We are creating our future thoughts. We are creating our future mental states. We are creating our future emotional states right now. We are habituating our future emotional states and mental states right now. It's a simpler way to say it, right? So whatever I'm thinking right now, whatever I'm feeling right now, whatever I'm doing right now, is setting up my future. It's setting up on a basic, subtle, energetic, karmic level. I am setting up my future being. Okay. Period. So that's what the guide is about. That's what our spiritual practice is about. And so the guide is saying, look, okay, you say, it's like a song. It's a song, right? I might need to go there.
What song?
No.
Tell us your song.
It's like a song.
Yay, it's Bruce.
I think it's a John Lennon song. Right? Anyway, never mind. I'm not
Which
going
one?
there. No. No, I won't. Just hum a few bars though.
Borrowed by John Lennon.
I don't want to go too far.
Imagine. Sorry.
So, what now were we talking about?
John Lennon.
Thank you. Completely lost the thought, the thread, but that's okay. It was Bruce's arrival, you know, it's a complete disruption. Yeah, hi Bruce, welcome.
Thank you. Traffic, sorry.
That's okay. So that's the point of the guide, right? The point of the guide is to say, look, you say you want to be a loving, compassionate being in the future, all right? Cause it. Make it happen. Do it, okay? It's not going to just magically occur. It's not going to happen for no reason. The only way you're going to bring about this future state that you aspire to and that you desire of love and compassion and all the rest is to create the causes right now, is to, in the present moment, to create the programming, the patterning, the habituation, the imprints that will bring about the future you that you want. Okay? And so if you're going to do that, you simply have to think the right way. It's not the best way to say it. You have to think as that kind of being. You have to create the causes to be a bodhisattva. You have to create the causes to be a saint. You have to deal with, we have to deal with our mind. We have to deal with our emotions. We have to deal with all the programming and habituation which we're carrying, right? So that we can become this other kind of being, right? And that's our goal, and that's our path, and that's our practice as spiritual practitioners, as Buddhist practitioners, is to say, I'm this kind of person, I'm going to be that kind of being, and I'm going to move from here to there. And the way I move from here to there is by simply creating the causes, setting up the habituation, initiating. It's like lighting a fuse in a way, you know? You start a process of habituation and you continue it. And as long as it continues and you don't break it, you get to the end and then, you know, it's done. So what the guide is doing here is saying, you want to be a bodhisattva. Let's talk about your mental afflictions, right? Let's talk about the things which get in the way of you being who you want to be. Let's talk about the things which obstruct you or us and prevent us from being the kind of fully pure, loving being that we want to be, right? Because if we want to be loving, we have to be able to deal with anger. We have to be able to deal with jealousy. We have to be able to deal with all of the other mental states and emotions that arise that are an impediment and an obstacle to being loving, right? So we have to start to do the work now. We have to wrestle with our mind. We have to reprogram ourselves. We have to recondition ourselves and re-habituate ourselves so that we turn into that kind of being, right? Okay. So far so good? So far so good. All right. So rather than going into all of the selling points about what being a bodhisattva will do for you, which the guide does, I would rather focus upon understanding who we want to be and what we want to be in the future, right? And then getting clear about how to move from here to there, right? I mean, I think if we're talking about the guide to the bodhisattva's way of life, if we're talking about being bodhisattvas as our primary spiritual path, right? We're basically saying, I want to treat people well all the time. I want to treat people ultimately well all the time, right? So if we're clear that that is our aspiration, I want to be the wisest, most loving, most compassionate, good person that I can be, virtuous person that I can be forever, right? That's who I want to be. That's what I want to be. We're going to get from here to there, right? So important to have the goal in mind, and important to understand the mental state and the emotional state that we want to get to, which is, I don't ever want to be pissed off at anybody, you know? I don't ever want to hurt anybody. I don't ever want to lash out at anybody. I don't ever want to say a nasty word to anyone for any reason, you know? I don't want to lose control and, you know, hurt other people because my mind is out of control or my emotions are out of control, right? I mean, I want to say the right thing all the time. I want to say the best possible thing all the time. I want to do the best possible thing all the time, right? So how am I going to do that? How am I going to get that, right? How am I going to walk that walk, you know? So that's the guide, right? So that's why tonight the focus is on 6 primary mental afflictions, right? And yes, there are 84,000. This is the top 6, which are called out in the guide. The idea being that they're in our mind pretty much continuously, pretty much all the time. And so the point here is that there's a certain baseline that we're living, right? We have a certain baseline way of thinking and a certain baseline way of being. And it's, I want to say innate, but it's natural to being human, right? And that's a big step. That's a big, I don't know, say that's a big ask to try to change that, right?
Changing being human?
Changing our baseline way of thinking and relating and acting, which is what? Me, and we're going to come to me and the self-existent world I live in, right? Like, I'm the most important one here, and everything around me exists from its own side, you know? So it's a big ask, and I'm sort of foreshadowing a little bit, but we have to get into it, but you know, it's a big ask to say we have to look at the world differently, and we have to not put ourselves first and think about ourselves obsessively and continuously, you know. And it doesn't just happen. You know, there's a lot of logic behind it. There's a lot of training behind it. There's a lot of rationale behind it, much of which we've spoken about. And that's why the study of the guide is such a beautiful and precious and holy thing. So for now, let's just go into it. So an affliction, so we're talking about 6 primary mental afflictions. And affliction is just anything which upsets the mind, right? We're trying to get to a place where we don't lose control of our mind, where our mind is not running rampant, where our mind is not unhappy and disturbed and imbalanced, right? So we're trying to get to a place where we're happy, we're positive, our mind is uplifted, joyous, good, right? Etc., etc., etc. All right. So this is the antithesis of that. This is, anything which is disturbing that and disrupting that, right? And in the way of that. I mean, you can think of it as, the metaphor of a still lake, reflecting everything beautifully. A calm, peaceful, happy, loving mind, as opposed to one which is quite turbulent and the surface is choppy and everything that reflects in it is an ugly fragment, So in Sanskrit, it's klesha. It comes from the root klish, which means to afflict or bother something, like an insect trying to bite you, or something like a fly at the beach that keeps biting you. It just keeps upsetting you and disturbing you, and it's just bothersome, right? So we talk about afflictions, mental talk about any mental state which isn't a happy, peaceful, joyous mind, essentially, right? If we can attain that permanently, then we're attaining nirvana. So, but Gyaltsab starts off his commentary saying, look, you have mental afflictions, and you need to go after them. Okay, it's not enough to just say, oh well, I get angry sometimes and that's okay. I get jealous sometimes and that's okay. I get depressed sometimes and that's okay. I feel lazy sometimes and that's okay. He's saying very clearly, get angry at your mental afflictions, which then of course leads to a big debate. It's about Buddhism, and they say, well, is an anger a mental affliction? And you're saying, have a mental affliction about your mental afflictions? But that's really not the point. So we have to first figure out the role of mental afflictions, and which is basically that they are obstacles to nirvana. If we didn't have any mental afflictions ever again, we would attain nirvana. Right? I mean, that is, what's the definition of nirvana? Permanent cessation of mental afflictions due to individual analysis, seeing emptiness. Right? So the state of not having any mental afflictions is attaining nirvana. Okay? So it's pretty cut and dry, right? Permanent end to those things. All right? So when we're no longer capable of having a bad thought, we will have attained nirvana. Okay? What does it mean to not be capable of having a bad thought? There's nothing that nothing you did in the past can ripen into a bad thought. No impulse that you have from the past, no behavior that you have from the past, no emotion or thought or subtle energy that you're carrying with you from the past is left to ripen into something popping into your head, which is upsetting.
Is that not Buddhahood?
Buddhahood includes omniscience. So that's the distinction between nirvana and full enlightenment. So in the Hinayana system they would call nirvana enlightenment. In the Mahayana system we would say you have to have the ability to be omniscient and have any bodies to help all beings to be fully enlightened. All right? So mental afflictions destroy our peace of mind, right? In Buddhism, we have the main mind and we have mental functions. So we say main mind is awareness, is consciousness. The main mind is the thing which is aware and knowing. And then you could think of that as almost like a pot or a container. And within that container are all the mental functions, the mental activity of discrimination. This is blue and this is red, and I like this and I don't like that. And this is great and that's terrible, right? So the mental functions are defined as things like anger, jealousy, desire. And they focus on some object or some detail, right? And so those mental functions are directed at something, right? Okay? Like jealousy focuses on someone else's good things, right? So the definition of a mental affliction is that when you have one, you're unhappy and your peace of mind is ruined. Informal definition. And that's their function. Okay? They're the enemy. Gyaltsen Jay is saying, they're the enemy. Okay, these things are your enemy and you have to go after them. I mean, a friend of mine, he said to me once when I was just like, yeah, I get a little upset, I get a little angry. He's like, why are you so lackadaisical about it? I mean, you need to deal with this. You need to see these things as like a demon. You need to see these things as like a virus in yourself that needs to be removed. You know, why are you saying I just have this thing and it's floating around inside me and it's just there and it's okay and I don't mind? And he's just like, you know what? You need to just like say, this can't be here. This needs to be out of my system. I got to kick this thing out. It's not okay that it's part of me. You know, it's very good advice. I was really struck by it. And it's the same thing Gyaltsen Jay is saying. He's saying, they're the enemy, and treat them like the enemy, and go after them like the enemy. You know, if you had a serious enemy, you know, someone that you were intent on eliminating, you know, and that you were fully committed to eliminating, you wouldn't get to it someday. You know, you'd be going after it directly, right?
John, I recently listened to the first 5 classes of the Bodhisattva vows class. And there was one particular recording that you kept coming back and asking Geshe-la, what did you say about anger?
Now I'm going to get in trouble.
What did you say about it? You kept on bringing him back. Like, is that because of anger? You kept on coming back to it.
What was the outcome?
Right here is what the outcome is, I think. How did you combat your anger?
No, I'm not. You mean back then? Or?
Well, that was then, this is now. You're bringing up anger now.
I'm not sure what the question is. What's the question? I'm not quite.
How have you been successful in combating your own anger?
Well, I had children. That was a major setback.
They inherited my anger. Sorry.
You know, I mean, it's one of the truths of being a spiritual practitioner. You know, it's like, oh, I read a lot of books, I went to a lot of classes, I understand the philosophy, and I sit on my Christian and I meditate nicely, and I'm a good spiritual practitioner. I have everything under control, and it's all lovely and good. You know, and then like get in a relationship or get married or have kids or whatever, and then you realize that there are plenty of buttons yet to be pushed, and there are plenty of deep recesses of the unconscious mind and the behavioral programming and conditioning, right, habituation, which need to be addressed. So, for me personally, with anger, it's an active, long-term process, right, of constantly reminding myself, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be angry. I'm feeling angry, and I don't want to be angry. I'm getting angry, and I don't want to get angry. And there really is a training process. For me, there's a real training process around making a choice and choosing something different, right? To say, okay, I did get angry. Now what am I going to do? How am I going to address it and have an antidote? And how am I going to come back and recover? This is all a very active process. It's a little bit Pollyanna to think, well, I'll read some books and I'll go to some classes and I'll understand it and then I'll have it taken care of, and everything will just be done. It's not. Life is active and messy and the more we engage and the more we interact and the more we are really in something, the more stuff comes up. We talked about it a little bit last week around the idea of the spiritual teacher. I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before. Around the idea of the spiritual teacher, and the more vested we are in something, the more we have emotionally at stake, and the more, from an identity system perspective, the more vested we are, the more we have at stake, the more intense our emotional reaction is, the more self-existently we see things, right? And the harder it is to deal with it. And so, as a Bodhisattva practitioner and as a spiritual practitioner, it becomes this process, I think, of just rising to the occasion over and over again. And so, you might have a very limited capacity initially, and you work at it for a while, and you increase your capacity, and you work at it for some more years, and you increase your capacity some more, and you get to a place where you can handle heavy stuff, right? Hopefully, right? And it's like, well, I can really handle heavy, intense situations instead of losing it in light situations. And so that's how I see it. That's my experience of it. Is it's a process of, it's like building muscles. It's a process of building a mental capacity and emotional capacity, which is what spiritual training is, right? It's not magic. It's not about reciting some special formula to make everything okay, right? It's about having hundreds and thousands of hours of intellectual education around how to think and how to behave ethically and virtuously based upon wisdom, right? And understanding the real nature of reality and how things exist. To be able to say, I choose to be like this, and I choose not to be like that. Countless times, right? And so it's just that choice over and over and over again. I choose to see things this way and not to see things that way. And people come along throughout and say, well, you should see it my way instead of the spiritual way. You should see it the self-existent way instead of the ultimate way. And on and on and on and on, And so it's very relevant and very appropriate to what we're talking about tonight, to say, how can I live in a way where I'm not buying into a defective system, a defective belief system? How can I live in a way where I'm not living the wrong life? How can I do this in a way where I am pursuing some conscious higher goals and not just sort of following, the momentum of a life that rolls along, propelled by gravity and circumstance, And it's very easy for us to just be like, well, I made a decision and then this thing happened and this led to that and that led to that, and now I got this career and then I got that family, and before you know it, you're propelled, to the end of your life through circumstance and, ripenings, and you're like, oh, now I'm old. Now it's too late. Shit. So, it's making the choice all along the way to reaffirm one's decision as to how one is going to think and behave, right? Every day and every interaction. And so the spiritual path is really just a moment to moment, interaction by interaction, reaffirmation of a value system and a belief system. And bringing that into presence and bringing that into implementation in daily life. So it's very beautiful that we've had all these classes for so many years, these holy topics and these holy ideas and these holy teachings. And it's so unfortunate, to have been able to bring meaning to our lives through these things. And we have to implement. We have to bring it to life moment to moment, as we go through the day. And so that's what the guide is about. It's just like, okay, you got these 6 mental afflictions floating around in your mind pretty much continuously. Let's talk about them, and let's look at what to do about them and with them. And let's figure out how to address them and how to get rid of them so that you can then become the kind of pure, virtuous being that you want to be. And how do we do that, right? So that's what we're doing, and that's why we're talking about these things. It's very sweet and it's very beautiful. So, yeah. So, anytime our mind is not happy and peaceful and uplifted, is having a mental affliction of some kind. And if I think about my life, that's pretty much all the time, I mean, if I think about my day, I am not walking around going like, I'm happy and peaceful and uplifted all day long, okay? Not a typical day, okay? So, the point here is that means we're having mental afflictions all day long, and we're not even aware that our mind is in this wonky, afflicted state because we're so oblivious, right? The baseline is so wrong. It's such a wrong baseline that we're living by, and we don't even notice that we're afflicted all day long. If we were going to have this other baseline, which is happy, peaceful, joyous, uplifted mind, as our normal baseline, we'd be going like, all the time we'd be going like, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. I'm not where I'm supposed to be, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Get back to your proper baseline, right? But we
happy
are...
and uplifted a lot of the time.
What's that?
I'm happy and uplifted a lot of the time.
Wonderful. It's fantastic. I'm not.
I get anxious sometimes aside from that.
Well, yeah, there are the moments of anxiety and anxiousness, but then, the more happy and uplifted and joyous we are, the better. So, all right, so let's look at these 6 buggers, right? So, the first one is translated usually as desire, dushak in Tibetan, and when I think about desire, things like this like impulse of like, oh, I have to do this thing that I'm not supposed to be doing, It's like I shouldn't eat the second pint of ice cream, I have this uncontrollable desire and I can't stop myself, right? Or the first pint for that matter, You think desire, you think like, oh, I have to go grab that person and like molest them and I can't control it. When you think desire, it's like some crazy thing, right? But this is not the thing that's floating around in our mind all day, right? And this is not what they're talking about, right? So if somebody says, are you desirous all day? You'd be like, yeah, thinking about work or whatever, paying the bills or whatever it is, right? And people who annoy me here. So here the point is that we're liking things in an ignorant way. So it's ignorant desire. What does it mean to like things in an ignorant way, right? And is it really true that it's floating around in my mind all the time? Well, first of all, the ignorant part, meaning it possesses some positive quality from its own side that I want to obtain, right? Like there's ice cream and it tastes good from its own side and it's desirable from its own side and delicious from its own side and all the goodness resides in the ice cream and I just need to buy it and eat it and then I'll have that, right? So, that's liking something ignorantly, thinking that some external object possesses a quality, which if I get it, I'll feel better in some way, right? So, that's liking something ignorantly, right? There's lots of desires which are not ignorant. Does the Buddha desire, that everyone's happy? Of course, that's not ignorant desire, right? So, liking things in an ignorant way, right, is going on all day long. The test of that is would we be willing to do something to hurt someone else to get it, right? And if we think that the pleasure or the gratification is resident out there, and as long as I obtain it, I'm good, and I'm better off, and I'm happier, right? There's ignorance there. There's ignorant desire there, right? So if we'd undertake a non-virtue to get what we want, then we're motivated by ignorant desire. So desiring that everyone be free of suffering and live in paradise forever is not ignorant desire. It's based upon understanding karma and reality and in virtue. So we wouldn't call that ignorant desire. We'd call that bodhicitta, say.
Assuming it's based in wisdom. Because I've had plenty of ignorant desire towards being just the right kind of student or the right kind of teacher or the right kind of practitioner, and it's covered with projection that if I do that, that has that quality.
Yeah, like, let me look like the good student,
Yeah.
you know, by making them look bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right?
there's a lot of those people.
So, that would be ignorant desire.
Yeah.
Around bodhicitta, for example, around the idea or the thought of bodhicitta, right? Or spiritual practice, or whatever the case might be, right? Supposed spiritual practice, right? Okay. So, so when we talk in a practical sense about liking something ignorantly, you know, if I've got $50 and I don't want to give it to somebody who needs something because I want to keep the $50 for myself, that's ignorant desire. Because I think the value resides in the money, right? Because I think that by holding on to this piece of paper and this money, right, that I am ensuring that I have money. When in fact, the only thing that ensures that I have money is giving money to others, karmically, right? So anytime I interact with anything, right, or I want something for myself, I don't want to give this dollar to the beggar because I want to keep it for myself because that dollar has value to me if I hold on to it. And if I give it away, the dollar does no longer has value to me. Once the dollar's out of my hand that I've given it to somebody, or the $50 is out of my hand that I'm giving it away to somebody, it no longer has any value to me, and I've lost something. I'm now $50 in the hole, or $50 less than what I had before. Ignorance, right? The only way that money comes to us is by giving. Right? So every time we think, I don't want to give because I want something for myself, there's ignorant desire. And it's continuous, right? So, I mean, New York City is a great place to practice in that regard, because if we just watch ourselves walk down the street or go into the subway and all the people we see who need things, right? What's the reaction? What's the emotional reaction? What's the intellectual reaction? What's the natural mental reaction? I don't care. I mean, it's either I don't care, it's not relevant to me, doesn't matter to my life, I don't want to give them money because I need my money. Or, I mean, pick, right, on any given day, in any given place. Like, how often is our mind saying, I want to be giving to all these people, you know, and bless you, and I like to be giving as much as possible to all these people, you know. So there's something going on there with ignorant desire if we're not thinking about engaging in the perfections, for example, of giving, as we're walking down the street. Right? Bless you. Okay? So, to refuse to give money to someone in need is a kind of blindness or ignorance. And it's wrong. And it's the best way to not have money, in fact, rather than to get money. It's really the dumbest thing to do if you want to have money, is to not give away money. You know, if you want to have money, then you have to give. You have to give things away, give money away. So there isn't a single dollar that exists in the universe that came from work. It all came from giving. So to think that by going to work and putting in my intelligence and creativity and labor and all the rest, that I am creating wealth for myself and creating money and income for myself is ignorance. I mean, karmically it's not true. You know? The only thing that brings money and income and wealth is giving. And that's a law of karma. So, but that's a problem, isn't it? Because it's very difficult to live that way. It's very difficult to think that way. And it's very difficult even to accept that. I mean, really, it's not our baseline, right? It's not our normal way of living and thinking.
Just the two extremes. Practically, giving all your $50, leaving you with our capacity to give in the future might be one. Mm-hmm. And secondly, having the impulse constantly to give, but knowing or having the perception that the beings you're giving to are just taking, and then you're habituating taking, then what are you really giving?
Well, what is the perfection of giving, right? the perfection of giving, and this is what the guide is about. It's about practicing the perfections, right, as we go through the various chapters. The perfection of giving is having an attitude and a mindset and a mental state where we always want to give to everyone, under any circumstance, with wisdom, of course, right? There are multitudinous scenarios, where one could give or not give. And one could say, I choose to not give to that person because I don't think it's for their benefit, and I don't think it's for my benefit, or whatever, right? No problem. And I want them to be happy, and I want them to have every success, and I want them to have every goodness, and da-da-da-da-da. So, when we're walking down the street and you see the 18-year-old, with the pack of cigarettes, and the cardboard sign, and the tattoos and the begging and the, and the dog and the, blah, 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 is the thought like, well, he's just going to waste the money on cigarettes and I'm not going to give it to him, right? Or is the thought, I want him to have every happiness and every abundance and every goodness, and, and I wish that for him.
Oh, it's the cigarettes. No, I thought you were asking which thought I had.
Well, but then in the end, we're talking about afflictions.
Yeah.
And we're talking about wrong view, and we're talking about what disturbs our peace of mind and what prevents us from attaining nirvana, right? So, ignorantly desiring things is one of the major afflictions. To think that there is a dollar which I can keep in my pocket to retain my wealth and income and financial position, right, or a bank account for that matter, right, is a self-existent thing.
What about feng shui, where you're supposed to keep like special money in certain places, or like underneath the rug you're supposed to save a quarter or something like that? You're supposed to save a special dollar bill in your wallet.
I'm not a feng shui expert. But to think that there's a dollar you could keep by not giving it away, right? It's a self-existent dollar. Like, I got however much money in my bank account, and if I just keep it there nicely and don't ever give any of it away or don't ever spend any of it, right? I'll always have it, right? That's self-existent money. That's self-existent, thinking. The only way to have money or have the money in your bank account is to give money away. There is no other kind of money. There is no other kind of wealth. It's a gapcha. It's the non-existent, self-existent thing. It's the object which we deny exists, right? It has the exact same status as a two-headed purple elephant, 20 foot tall running around in this room right now. There's no such thing, okay? So the idea is there's anything out there from its own side for me to ignorantly like or ignorantly pursue is the basis of a main mental affliction, right? My mind is pervaded by the thinking that everything outside of me retains a value from its own side. And I relate to it like that. And it's ignorant, and it doesn't exist that way, right? So it pollutes the mind continuously. So that's disliking something ignorantly. Sorry, that's desiring something ignorantly. Okay? That's a sign of ignorance. Now, are we bad people because we're doing that? No, it's implicit in the human condition. All right? Our minds lack wisdom and see everything as self-existent, and so therefore we must see it that way and must relate to it that way until we train ourselves otherwise, which is what we have to do, right? Okay, so we do that all day long, right? Every few seconds. Then, the opposite of that is disliking something ignorantly, right? That's unpleasant from its own side. If I could just push it away, if I could just avoid it, I would be happier, right? And I'll do anything I can to push it away from me, because by getting it away from me, I'll feel better and I'll be happier.
What if you're dealing with someone who's crazy, you don't want them around you?
Well, so again, the test is would you hurt them to accomplish your result, right? If you don't want someone around you, would you remove them from being around you in some kind of loving way, some kind of kind way,
Probably.
or some kind of
Unless
way
you
which
just-
says if I shout at them enough, they'll leave me alone, or if I punch them, they'll leave me alone.
Right, because I had an ex-boyfriend who hit me, and it was like, you just couldn't have compassion. You just couldn't, like, you know, I hit him with a pocketbook. I got in trouble for it, but, you know, like,
You have to have compassion for yourself. You have
Yeah.
you have to look after yourself, and you have to say, I can't permit this person to behave in a non-virtuous way towards me.
right,
And I can't permit myself to be treated that way. I have to treat myself in a loving, compassionate way. It's not okay, and therefore the situation has to be ended in the best possible way. Rather than hitting them harder, for example, to knock them out so that they stop, say. You know, that would be ignorance, thinking that, you know, it's coming from over there, and if I just do whatever it takes to get rid of it, I'll be okay. Right?
Well, yeah, if you're put in that situation, you're kind of like, you know, it's an extreme.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unpleasant. And, you know, so here, again, the point is disliking things ignorantly is in our mind all day long. From the subtle thought that the fan is too loud, to the little bright light shining in my eye and I don't like it, to that person's voice is really grating and really irritating, you know? I mean, all of these thoughts continuously going on in our mind are focused upon a self-existent external object that I don't want to be there, right? And that's ignorant disliking, right? And that's mental affliction. So, if I did have ignorant liking or disliking, I wouldn't have a disturbed mind. It's not possible to have a disturbed mind without ignorantly liking or disliking something. And an important key to getting rid of those mental afflictions. Right? So what about all the things we like and dislike? What's their status? Coming from me, coming from us. We are projecting that. We are projecting their nature and their identity and their value and the like and the dislike, right? We're responsible for everything we perceive and whether we like it or dislike it, right? And so when we start to relate to things that way, it's a very different experience in the world. It's a very different baseline, if you will, right? If we really believe that all the negative, unpleasant things that I experience are coming from me and that I'm responsible for them, I'm going to feel very differently about them. I'm going to relate very differently to them. Right? And I think there's no negative quality in the other person. There's no irritating manner in the other person. Right? I'm going to treat them very differently. I'm going to think very differently about them. Right? As it stands right now, we have this deep, visceral belief and feeling that the problems come from outside of us, from the things which we are perceiving as being outside of us, right? And that it's not a function of our mind. It's not coming from me, and it's not based upon my projection, right? So, if we thought every time somebody hurt me, I did that in the past to someone else. Now what do I need to do right now to fix this? We'd be living every moment of every day very differently. And we have a very different perception of everything, right? And that's not to say that it wouldn't still hurt, or we still wouldn't have some emotional response. Obviously we would. But as we do that over and over and over again, it totally changes the scenario, totally changes the picture. If every time somebody hurt me, I said, I did that in the past, now what do I need to do right now to fix it for the future, right? And I behave in a loving or kind or thoughtful or compassionate way. Huge radical sea change in what I'm going to experience in the future, right? And so it begins to reshape how my mind functions in the future and what I experience in the future, right? The more strong our wisdom becomes, the less upset we can get, right? The more and more we're able to say, this is about me, this isn't about anything outside of me, right? much easier to not get upset, which goes back to your question about, me saying 15 years ago, what about anger? Because you're like, what about anger? So, 15 years later, I can much more readily, easily, and comfortably say, and reflexively say, I don't want to be an angry person. I don't want to respond like that. And in fact, let me correct myself, catch myself, and correct myself very quickly. And so now my dog's like, Dad, you're really getting angry, and I don't like your tone, and I wish you would speak to me differently. And I can say, okay, well, I don't want to be an angry person, and I'll try to work on that, and I'll try to do better, right? Instead of just being, some other response, It's just what it is, right? So that we get to the point where there's enough training to not be angry. And for me, the wisdom piece is often missing, where I'm able to habituate myself to behave in a loving and compassionate way, but then I forget the wisdom piece around why did I get angry at her in this instance anyway? What was the cause of me getting angry for her in this instance? Well, it was me, being angry. And so it's very hard for me to always remember to bring that wisdom piece in, which is very necessary, right? Why don't we take a little break and then we'll do pride when we come back. So the break is in order. And when you're walking out there, just watch and observe your mind in terms of like, how are you thinking about the cookies?
I don't have to be out there to catch that. I caught it just then, thank you. There was self-existent goodness.
I'm going to go acquire
It's so nice to see you.
Me too.
Let me save this one and I love you.
Consume them and take it into me.
If I had really understood impetus, I probably wouldn't have had 6
Welcome back
Thank you.
home.
No, it doesn't necessarily fall.
Same, I kept asking when did it
All of
come
the
back.
like
And
goodness
then finally, it does feel like it's been a million
You could
years.
think,
So I did the 10 day
wow,
Vipassana
I
retreat.
heard, how was that?
It's
Yeah, of course it was.
execution, right? It's like as you're eating the cookie, it's like, wow, this is lovely,
Oh, it was great.
past virtue ripening. It's so
Let me just do
lovely
this.
that I gave tasty food to people in the past, and I'm so enjoying it.